Hello, and welcome to another Wolfram Tech Talk. I am Arben Calzici, still, and today I'm here with Alan Joyce, who works on socioeconomic data in Wolfram Alpha. And today he'll be telling us a little bit about an exciting new partnership we have with Microsoft, where a lot of this data that's in Wolfram Alpha is getting integrated into Excel so that you can access it straight from Excel. Alan?
Yeah, well, hey, that's about the whole story. That was great.
Okay,
Thanks.
great. Talk
We
over. Thank you.
well, we've been in this partnership with Microsoft for over a year now.
Hmm.
We've What we've been working on is, as you said, a way for people to get direct access to a lot of the content that we have in the Wolfram knowledge base. I mean, all of the most of the entities and properties that are accessible through Wolfram Alpha, but also accessible directly through the Wolfram language, through entity value and other functions, but making that just directly available in Excel. So you can type or copy lists of entity names of more than 100 different types of things into Excel. Click a button, essentially that's going through the Wolfram Alpha parser, trying to understand what types of things those are, resolve those to specific entities, and then you can do some really cool stuff with that directly in Excel. Those things then in Excel aren't just strings in a cell in a spreadsheet. They're sort of more dynamic entities that have all sorts of other data associated with them. So you can pull up a card and look at all the properties that are exposed in Excel. You can click on properties and pull them out into the spreadsheet, and then you can compute with those if they're quantitative values. You can just write formulas in Excel, and you can do all the kinds of things you would normally do in an Excel sheet.
Right. So instead of having just like a string that says, the UK or something like that, you
Right.
can access, well, I guess specific to what you're working on, socioeconomic data. So you get population statistics, income statistics, you could get weather, you get any of this stuff just kind of accessible right in Excel.
Right, and some of those things are more static values, things like population that might get updated every year or so. But in some domains, things like some of the astronomical domains, where some of the properties of a planet or a star or something are very time and location dependent, then that's the other cool thing. You click on something like, what's the next rise time for Mars? And it's going to actually go back to the Wolfram Alpha server and figure out, okay, well, you're here and this is this date, and here's the actual value for today. And then in Excel, you can refresh a spreadsheet, you can get more, refresh all the values that can be time and place dependent, and get more updated values when you need them. Share those I always want to call everything notebooks, but share those spreadsheets with other people, and they can access that data. So it's really cool, and it's been a big effort for a lot of people. On the Wolfram Alpha side, people working on Wolfram Language, people in Wolfram Solutions, a big partnership with people across the company and with people in Microsoft, who have been just great partners on working with this and trying to expose more of this content and functionality to people. I mean, I can show some examples of what we've kind of worked on and what's available to people. Let me just start here. I think probably first thing, there's some good resources online that give you a better overview of what the partnership is about and kind of how things look in different domains. This is just sort of the general overview of what we have available, some highlighting some specific examples. There's food data that's accessible through Excel, so people can do meal trackers, nutrition planners, all kinds of data that you can pull out. Space and astronomy, there are a lot of good uses for a lot of domains here that we think in education. Lots of people have access to Wolfram Language in schools and universities, but obviously Excel is another thing that some teachers, some classrooms are more familiar with. They have some resources they're also using. So this is just a great way to get more Wolfram content in front of people in a really easy to use kind of dynamic way. Like you mentioned, cities being able to pull out a lot of demographic, socioeconomic data, again, kind of in an educational context, but also, for people who are, business owners, people doing marketing, people who want to have some more, up-to-date data on different aspects of cities, counties, states, zip codes, all that kind of stuff is also accessible directly through Excel now, thanks to the Wolfram integration. like I said, there's a lot that's exposed. Not everything that's accessible through Wolfram Alpha and the Wolfram language, but more than 100 different entity types.
Mhm.
You can see spanning a lot of different domains. So, space and astronomy, a lot of physical geography, points of interest,
Mhm.
structures, animals, biology, earth science.
Even different
You
types
know,
of exercises there.
yeah, exactly. And that, I mean, that in addition, along with food, I think is one of the domains that we and Microsoft have been particularly excited about because they seem like more natural ways for sort of general users of Excel to get into this.
Hmm.
Something like tracking your meals, tracking your
Hmm.
activity. These are things that
Right.
a lot of people commonly do in Excel.
Hmm.
And with the data and the computation that we make available here, it just opens up a lot of other things. It
Yeah.
lets people just type in an activity. I went running for an hour, 6 miles at this pace, and we can compute calories burned and all sorts of other things for that. So it's a cool thing to enable just
Right.
some very everyday kind of uses and also more technical, educational, scientific uses in Excel.
You're right. So that's a really good way for people who are maybe a little bit less familiar with, maybe they're not scientists, or maybe they're not working on economics or something. They're not maybe used to working with numerics. This is a great way for them to kind of
Right,
access all this computational knowledge and computational ability without having to sit there and learn, about how to
exactly.
access all this stuff in a programmatic way necessarily.
Right. We've also created for each of the entity types that's exposed in Excel, we've created type specific pages so people can go to these, again, linking back from that previous page, be able to go through and take a look at, what are some of the kinds of entities that are accessible in this domain? What are properties you can access? Lots of kind of interesting things there. I can show a little bit more about how exactly this works. I'm not sure if it might be helpful if I zoomed in here a little bit more.
Yeah, I think that's good.
But okay, just very basically, the fundamental way that people interact with things here in Excel is you've got a list of some kind of entity, and those again could be planets, they could be foods, they could be exercises, they could be cities. You type or copy paste, however you've imported them into an Excel sheet.
Hmm.
You select those cells, and then you go to the data tab up here, and you can see if you pull this down, there's a small number of what Microsoft refers to as data types. For us, these
Hmm.
are sort of like collections of Wolfram language entity types. There's a small number that are sort of uh, Microsoft created, they're built-in things, stocks, currencies, some geographic features.
Hmm.
The rest of this stuff down here is all Wolfram content. And so these are not individual entity types. In some cases, like movies, it's really just movie entities. But with things like chemistry, this could be elements, chemicals,
Hmm.
other kinds of things. For structures, that spans ridges, buildings, canals, dams, all these kinds of
Right.
things.
So kind
So
of a
there's
meta
kind of
meta entity
right.
type. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Um, and if you don't really know what you're looking for, you can also just click automatic, and that's
Hmm.
going to try to get all the possible things that a given set of strings might correspond to. So, kind of also giving you a sense a little bit more about some of the things that happen behind the scenes and what we're trying to do here.
Hmm.
So we'll say Mercury, Jupiter, and Mars. Um, I'm going to click automatic, just for whatever reason. Maybe I don't know what I want to resolve that to. And what's going to pop up here is a disambiguation pane, kind of like you get in Wolfram Alpha or you get in the Wolfram language, where if there's any ambiguity about what a specific input should be interpreted as, you're going to make some choices. And so in this case, we've got Mercury, Jupiter, and Mars, and because there are a number of different possible interpretations of each of those,
Hmm.
we're going to make you try to choose which thing you might mean. And so you can go over here and you say, yeah, I definitely want the planets. I can click through here and say, yeah, turn those all into planets. Um, if you have a little bit better sense of the general domain you're looking for, you could also go in here and say, you know what, I want space. I don't want given names. I don't want fictional
Hmm.
characters. And so that will also help to limit. And here we go straight to the planets. The other thing that we're doing is also taking into account context in the spreadsheet. And so, it could be something as simple as you've put a heading on a column.
Mm.
And when you select a span of cells, we're going to look and see, is there column header? Is there something there that kind of matches one of the domains that we cover? And so
Mhm.
even in this case, then if I say automatic, we're going to look up there and we're going to say, okay, planets. Yeah, we
Oh,
think
that's
those are the
nice.
planets, and resolve to
Okay.
that. Um, once you've resolved a string and turned it into an entity, then you can go in and every entity is going to have one of these little icons to indicate that it's an entity. It's not just a string in that cell. And you can click on that icon,
Mhm.
and that's going to pop up one of these cards that's going to have available all of the properties that we've made accessible through Excel.
Mhm.
And so you can scroll down here. These are kind of like Wolfram Alpha pods. These are collected into pods in a card here. So you've got orbital properties. You've got uh, there's a lot of things for astro domains, physical properties, atmosphere. Some of these are even pulling in images that we're generating on our side. So something like a
Mhm.
sky map, you pull that up, and this is actually going, and like we do in Wolfram Alpha or in the Wolfram language, this is going to generate a sky map for right now for wherever your user location is. And then you could pull that
Mhm.
out into the spreadsheet. But kind of going through this, you've got a property that you want to pull out. I don't know, largest distance from the sun. You could click on that, and that will just drop that property value into the spreadsheet. And the cool thing here is then, that cell is not just uh, a number. This is really a formula in Excel. And what it
Oh.
is this is, E2, whatever the entity is in E2,
Mhm.
and then it is this property of that entity. So then I could take this and I could pull that down, and that's going to copy not the value, but that
Mhm.
formula down into those cells. So if you've got a big row of entities, you can just go ahead and do that and just populate your whole spreadsheet with values for a particular property or range of properties. Um, you could also, um, if you go in, you select something like this, you could say, I want to turn this into an actual Excel table. That's where my data is. And then you can just start going from here and say, you know what, I want to get average diameter. Um, I want to get temperature, and it's going to start pulling those things out and generating a table for you. So, very cool. And then whatever you want to do with these things, you can do other kinds of computations. You can do other kinds of operations on the values that you've got out in your spreadsheet. Um, one thing that is not supported in Excel, and I'll just shout out to things that are very cool about the Wolfram language. Uh, there is no sense of an actual unit system in
I was about
Excel.
to ask. Yeah.
Yeah, and so, but if you go into the cards for something, what you've got attached to each of these properties is what the actual units are for that property. So that
Mhm.
information is getting passed through. It's just that when you pull out some numeric value into the spreadsheet,
Right. Right.
this isn't anything more complex than just it's a
Right,
number.
because you'd have to combine, a number and a string in there, and then that might
Right,
mess with the computations you want to do. So, okay,
right.
that makes
I
sense.
mean, that's something hopefully on the horizon, something we've talked about a lot. And I think it's
Mhm.
obvious to people who've used this, but the value that would be there, and comparatively, if you really need access to that kind of thing, the power of what you've got in the Wolfram language. Um, yeah, but I think there's a whole host of things. There are also some uh, templates that we've worked on that Microsoft has done a lot of the design work here, but there are some very cool templates that they've set up that are focused on some specific kind of popular areas that people use in Excel, either for education or other things. So we've got planets. I think we've got another one for yeah, nutrition tracking. They've set
Yeah.
up kind of these nice things so that to give people a better sense, instead of just go into a blank spreadsheet and start typing things in, here's some nice kind of formatted stuff that does some dynamic visualizations of
Oh
things.
yeah.
So I could
Wow.
go in here and
I love
say
that.
like 2 slices of bacon, and yeah, because this is coming in a cell that's after a bunch of other foods, it's going to try to just automatically resolve that.
That's quite
And these
quick too.
cells, yeah, these cells have already got some formulas that they're auto-populating. So
Mhm.
it's this kind of thing that also, Excel has a lot of great functionality for building templates and doing these kinds of automated things. And so
Mhm.
combining that with all the just ready-made data that we're putting into Excel, it just opens up a lot of other cool things that people can do.
Yeah, that's pretty fantastic. I didn't even realize when you first opened this that this was a spreadsheet. I missed the header
Right.
labels and the row labels here. Looks
So
just
as
like some
someone who
sort of
doesn't
interface.
as someone who doesn't personally spend a lot of time working
Mhm.
in spreadsheets, yeah, but this is the kind of thing that a lot of people in a lot of different settings do in Excel, and you can do a lot of really powerful, flexible, dynamic things. And so combining that with access to just all the hundreds of different data types and thousands of properties and data points, it's a really neat feature. It's something we're excited to see people starting to use in Excel and all the cool stuff people are able to do.
Yeah, and you mentioned briefly educational purposes. I could certainly see, an instructor putting together some sort of template like this that their students could use to learn about,
Yeah.
any of these things, be it planets or exercises or nutrition or, state capitals or what have you.
Chemistry, I think there's another really cool
Oh
template
yeah,
that we
yeah.
put together that's, one of the sheets in the workbook is the periodic table. And so you can click on that and get, other kinds of properties of any of those elements pop up. There are other tabs that let you sort and play around with different aspects of elements. It's really cool. A really nice way for students who've got access to this functionality to explore and play around with things a little more dynamically, and also get people exposed to some of what Wolfram is about in terms of
Mhm.
computational data.
All right, yeah, that's fantastic. And students and other people who are interested in this, how can they access this functionality?
It's accessible now. It should be available to everybody who has an Office 365 subscription. So
Hmm.
it's not something that's just available to people who get whatever core Office or Excel is.
Right.
But there are different subscription levels for
Hmm.
students and companies and other things. But
Of course.
anybody who's got Office 365, the data types functionality is out. You've got access to, again, 100 plus different entity types. There are more that we're constantly working on trying to expose in Excel and figure out what domains are going to be interesting, what properties are going to be most useful in Excel, improving the functionality for the things that we've already got available. It's a really exciting partnership, and really great to, I think, have Microsoft have recognized us as the people to go to for
Hmm.
computational data and something like this.
Yeah, it seems like a really kind of, I hate to say synergistic, but it really does seem like a nice synergistic integration.
Well, yeah, and when they came to us, the things like the stocks, currency, and geography things,
Hmm.
that was functionality they had already built. And it was really interesting when we first started talking to them to realize, and we don't always find this, kind of that we were very much in sync with thinking about,
Hmm.
down to the terminology, just thinking about entities and properties and exposing those in Excel. And it just was a very, very natural fit for the way we had designed things to work in entity value in the Wolfram language. Technical hurdles, a lot of things to figure out and making things work through their APIs and bringing things into Excel and making things work cleanly. But just the general way of thinking about knowledge and organizing knowledge was completely in sync with how we've been approaching it for years. So that was very easy, at least on that front.
Yeah, I imagine that definitely helps kind of get everybody synced up to speed really quickly.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's other things that we're working on,
Hmm.
trying to there's a general search integration. There's other
Hmm.
kinds of trying to make it possible for people not just to uh, copy paste data into the Excel sheet, but actually run natural language queries in the sidebar and get some data back.
Right.
Trying to figure
Right.
out ways that are a little more natural for people to um, discover data in Excel and not just bring data in and
Hmm.
try to work with it.
Hmm. Yeah, that sounds like a nice next step for this partnership.
Yeah, yeah. Well, they've been a good partner, and it's a really exciting thing to see going out to users.
Well, thanks a lot, Alan, for telling us about this interesting partnership with Microsoft and giving us some examples of what can be done with the Wolfram Alpha integration in Excel.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a lot of fun to work on.
That was Alan, who told us about our partnership with Microsoft and the integration that we have with our Wolfram knowledge types in Excel. I'm looking forward to seeing what they come up with next, and stay tuned for more Tech Talks.